Alright, so here we go. So what we have here is a Craft KC3 joystick. And I've looked online at a few of these. I've seen them on eBay and a couple of YouTube videos. There's different styles of these. This, I think, is a later style. The earlier style looks a little bit more boxy and closer to the original Craft Deluxe stick, but most notable feature on this is probably the fire button on the stick itself. Other than that, it's almost, you know, feature for feature the same as the old Craft Deluxe stick. You got your self-centering mechanism, you got your two buttons. This is probably a button one. You do have your locking mechanisms down here. One thing that I learned interesting about this is actually a 3-position lock. You have self-centering. If I go to the middle, basically that kind of gives it a little bit of play. It doesn't look like it moved. Yeah. So now it's in the middle, and it kind of has a little bit of play in there. It's not quite as snappy. It's just a hair looser. Then if you go to off, you have to pull this down. Go to off, and these are really tight to pull. But now you can see I've got the full. All right, so I'm going to go back to middle. Went all the way to the top. It's hard to get right in the middle. So again, right in the middle. Nope, that's off. Middle. And on, which is just very snappy. So it's hard to see the difference on the middle setting here, but it's a little bit freer. Okay, anyway, first things first, let's open this up. I will say that it's overall in really good condition. It doesn't look like it's seen a lot of use, but there is quite a bit of dust inside these adjuster knobs on the plastic here. So we'll be just doing a good cleanup as we go, and we'll reconfigure the wiring to be Color Computer compatible, and then we'll change the connector. Just 2 screws hold this thing together, just like the Craft Deluxe joystick, although those were held in with diagonal screws. There we go. So there's that mechanism. I'm guessing this is a switch for an auto fire function. That's interesting to know that that's there. And these are just super stiff. That is crazy how stiff these are, even with nothing on them. All right, anyway, let's get back to this. So there is a circuit board in here. That's interesting. I wonder, yeah, that's nothing but a button board. Just holds the 2 buttons. Okay, and you can see right here, this red wire, 2 red wires actually, go to the joystick handle, and they come up here to this button on the left. So this button is the same as this button. You can tell by the wiring here. Interesting. All right, so before anything else, I'm going to go ahead and spray some deoxit into these pots. And the opening is really right here, so it's nice and convenient. Not a whole lot. Work them around. Feels nice and smooth. I like the action of this stick. I'm not gonna fully disassemble this. It doesn't look like it really needs it. I can clean these while they're still inside there. Let's see, yeah, this will work. Like I said, it's just a little dust. It's not like grimy or anything. So really just a little gentle cleaning is all we need here. I'm gonna go ahead just use a little Windex on this, just to say I did, really. I mean, overall this joystick looks almost brand new. The only place I see any kind of dirt at all is like in this little seam here. And then, like I said, there was some dust on these adjuster pads, but I've got that cleaned out. So, I don't know. Doesn't look perfect, but for now I'm just going to avoid opening this up until I think I need to. Just clean the outside up, it feels fine. Alright, so how do we make this CoCo compatible? I'm going to put this up here so I can just have it out of the way, have it supported. Come on. Oh, that's just not going to work. Great. Okay. First of all, let me verify what we have here. So on a PC stick, obviously they don't use the voltage divider like we do. They just have a ground, which I believe the blue wire, this blue wire is. So this blue wire is actually a signal. This is a common, probably the ground, the orange. The white wire is your x-axis. The blue wire is your y-axis. I should write this down. Okay. X. Blue is Y. All right. So, what I have here, green and brown. Or button 2. Okay, gray is button 1. Okay, so the blue wire is your y-axis, the white wire is your x-axis. Those go to the center terminal of the potentiometer. The gray wire is button 1, the brown wire is button 2, and the joystick button in the center also goes to button 1. It's in parallel here. So that's fine. The orange wire is going to be our 5 volts. And 5 volts is going to go basically to both of these terminals. So this is upside down, so it's a little harder to show here. But if I push to the right, you can see this potentiometer is moving that way. If I push to the left, it moves that way. And same with up and down. It's kind of opposite here. So in my top left corner, this and this should be 0 volts. And this should be 5 volts. Okay? So the orange wire is going to go here, and then I'll connect both of those. And a common wire, probably go from the green wire to right here. And then also parallel to over here. So let's get that going. This is super awkward. Thanks. Okay, first of all, 5 volts. Go ahead and tin this pad. And this one. on the terminals. Thanks. It's good. And the adjustment, nice and clear, nothing obstructing. Alright, happy with that. I need to connect ground to ground, and we'll be about done with that. And there we go. This is, for the inside work, it is completely rewired. We've got ground on the 2 outside terminals and also to the buttons. And then we've got 5 volts to the 2 inside terminals. Got blue and white for the signals. Okay. So you can see how the black surround has been cut away from the actual socket on there. I'm not sure why somebody would have done that. Probably for clearance to fit in some tight audio card or something on the back of some PC. These pins definitely look a little bit used here. And one pin isn't even sticking out all the way. Oh well. I'm gonna cut that off into the trash. So for these guys, basically, I mean, you only want to cut off about as little as you need. It's about 3/4 of an inch. So this is how I do this. Just kind of roll around slowly. Almost done. Beautiful. All right, and we have 6 wires here, which is exactly right. Basically, I'm going to get all of these prepped. All right, so those are set. Now, important thing to not forget is you got to put this black housing on the wire before you start soldering. So there's a little tab in here. You just push this down, and then you should be able to push the whole assembly forward. Okay, come on. Alright, dang. That's tougher than it needs to be. After you bend one of these to get it apart, it's a good idea to bend it back up a little. Make sure that housing stays on securely. Pull all this apart. This goes here. Now something else I'm going to do. That's quite a bit of free loose gap right there. So I'm going to build this up with some heat shrinks so that it's a little more snug. Probably going to take 2 or 3 layers. And the way I'm going to do that... Alright, so I'm going to cut this, cut 1 inch, cut 1 1/4 inches. And this one about 2 inches. So I've got 3 pieces, different lengths, and we're going to kind of overlap them. So I'm going to start by pushing this down all the way. Alright, so one at a time. Next one. There we go. That could have been trimmed a little shorter, but whatever, it's fine. And this will be much more snug as it goes up there. All right. So, the other thing I need, I'm going to do heat shrink on all of these, so I need at least 6 pieces of heat shrink. So these are just going to be short, 1/4 inch-ish. And these have to be pretty short to be able to slide them back on the wire far enough that you can solder the wire without shrinking the tubing. So once again, the golden rule of soldering one of these is that you never just solder directly to it. You always put it either in a socket. Some people like to use a potato. You can use a potato if you want, just make sure you clean it thoroughly, because potatoes have acid in them that will corrode the plating. I have plenty of these sockets laying around, so I just use a socket. The other thing is knowing the pinout here. I actually know this pinout pretty much by heart because I made so many of these sticks, but I will just draw this out for you. So we're looking at the solder side of this terminal, which is the same as looking at the back of the computer. So this is pin 1, that's your x-axis. Pin 2 is Y, pin 3 is ground, pin 4 is button 1, pin 5 is 5 volts, and pin 6 is button 2. Alright, got my socket here. I'm going to go ahead and mount that in the vise so that this thing is not moving around on me. Okay, so while I solder this, I'm going to hold the heat shrink with my finger to make sure that it doesn't shrink. And pull the heat shrink back, put the wire in the hole, attempt to make it stick. You fail. Alright, so here's what we'll do. Yeah. I'll just dip this kind of right in there. Make sure all those pins have just a little bit on them. There we go. Nothing can possibly go wrong now. Get a little solder on the iron, bring it back. Here, come on. Dog. Okay, that's stuck. Finally. Good Lord. Now, I don't like shrinking my heat shrink before I've tested anything. You just kind of have to do this way. And of course, the whole time you're doing this, you're trying to be careful not to yank on the wires you've soldered so that you break them and have to cut the heat shrink and resolder. And yeah, let's not do that. Once again, I'm going to put a little more fresh solder on here with flux. Okay. So there we go. We have our 6 wires individually soldered and heat shrunk. I don't know. Now we can put our shield back on. All right, this guy just kind of sits there like so. Not like that, like that. There we go. So I will crimp this down a bit. I slide this up into place. It's tight. I might have put too many layers of heat shrink on there. Just work it up on there. This will be a pain in the ass if I ever have to take it off. All right. There we go. God, I hope that works the first time. Yeah, that should have just been 2 layers. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. There we go. Now it's snapped into place. All right, time to put this all back together. Make sure there's no dog hair. All right. So you want to make sure they're in the on position to get this back together. There we go. All right, and that is that. We have officially converted and made a brand new CoCo joystick. Not very happy with that, but I'll fix it later. Moment of truth time. I'll go ahead and move the camera now, and we'll test this thing out, see if it works. All right, well, I've got a CoCo 3 set up here. I've got an SDC so I can load my test program. I've got the joystick plugged into the right joystick port. First thing I'm going to do, go to my diagnostics. I have a joystick test program. So You can see that we are moving. All right, we get almost full range on the adjustments. That's actually kind of cool. 32 is the midpoint, plus or minus 1. So that one goes all the way down to 1 up to 54. Yeah. So these are both working as button 2. How's that? And this is button 1. Well, I may have to reconfigure that. I don't like both of those being button 2. We have a functioning joystick. All right, now let's find a real test. That'll do. R. Okay, so I'm just gonna. Oh no, we're backwards. Why am I backwards? Don't make no sense. Oh. So this is not an ideal joystick for this game. It's because of the long throw. But it works all right. Okay, well, I wired it up backwards. Shocker. But it works. The buttons work. Sticks work. Pretty awesome. Okay, so my first round of testing was somewhat flop. I managed to wire the potentiometers backwards. I guess I was holding it upside down when I was getting my bearings. At any rate, all I had to do was reverse the 5 volts and ground on these pots. And the other thing is my interpretation of how the buttons are wired was off. Basically, both buttons on this board are button 2, and the button on top of the stick is button 1. Not entirely sure I'm crazy about that, but I'm not going to change it for now. I could always swap it by simply swapping the gray wire and the brown wire. Those are the 2 button lines. So if I swap those, these would be button 1 and the top would be button 2. If I wanted to make these separate, 1 and 2, I'd have to cut a single trace on this board somewhere. But I'm not going to mess with that. I'm just going to leave the buttons as is for now, play with it for a while, and see how I like it. So I'll go ahead and button this back up, and then we'll do some more testing. Okay, so I have corrected the X and Y axis connections in the joystick, so we'll give this another shot here. We'll go with some Pac-Man. Oh, good. Why will you not go? Because I didn't. You have to center it, okay? Jeez. No. Not the joystick's fault. This thing actually feels pretty good. Nice and smooth. Feels way smoother than a normal deluxe. Normal deluxe. Is that an oxymoron? Man. Alright, well, joystick works great, actually. I'm very happy with this joystick. Good $5.